All right, welcome into Floor is Yours, an extension of 5 on the Floor here on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. I'm Ethan Skolnick. I'm going to introduce the sponsor in a second. Before I do, I will introduce the panel. Under me, Greg Sylvander. Of course, you know him from 5 on the Floor. You can follow him at Greg Sylvander. Alex Toledo. You can't follow him at Alex Toledo, but you can follow him at Tropical Blanket. And then we've got our guy with 2 Twitter handles now, so I'm not really sure which one I'm to be tagging. He's Toine from Clutch Corner, one of the new additions to Clutch Corner. What am I going with? TJ Ellis or Toine Speaks or what?
Well, TJ Ellis got all the clout, so we can go with that one.
Right. You got to go with the big numbers, right?
Exactly.
Go with the one with the clout. That's the one to go with. We are. That's what we do around here. We are sponsored pretty much all season, and we appreciate it. And you should definitely check it out by our friends over at Everything Trade Shows. I can actually walk from my apartment to their offices. They're based right here in Fort Lauderdale, but we prefer actually this than when I read it on the podcast. You can actually see how these things look, okay? EverythingTradeShows.com is where you want to go for an entire booth build. Like if you work for a company that's going back to trade shows, and trade shows are overrun right now. You can see all the companies that have used Everything Trade Shows. You saw Microsoft on there and a bunch of the others. They'll do the whole thing. Citrix, which of course is a Fort Lauderdale company, they do the whole booth design for you, the whole damn thing, okay? From like soup to nuts. They will tell you exactly how to get noticed at a trade show. And here's the best part. If you mention 5 Reasons to Chris and everybody else over there, you can see our friend Christian Chase over there. It's just Alejandro, our producer, is popping it up right there. If you mention 5 Reasons, you get a free booth rendering. Like they will literally, I mean, not only will they give you a consultation, they will design the thing for you and show you exactly how it's going to look. So go to everythingtradeshows.com. You can find all the phone numbers and everything else on there because I'm old and the type is too small for me to print. But there it is. You can find it. There's Chris's our thank you. See Alejandro taking care of an old man here. 954-791-8882. It's 954-791-8882. 8882. And again, that's everythingtradeshows.com. Check out the website. It's a great site. And you will be able to find everything that you want there. And again, if you don't run your own business, I know we have a lot of small business owners in our audience. If you don't, I mean, just mention it to the boss. We're going to a trade show. Why don't we get this thing to look nice, right? So that's the thing to do. Of course, we've got convention centers down here in Fort Lauderdale and Miami, but they handle all 50 states. All right, let's get to it tonight. Miami Heat are 3-1 on the season. You can catch the pod that I did last night. We gave Greg the night off, did one with Alex and Brady. So you can check that out. They beat the Nets. They've now beaten the 2 supposed contenders in the Eastern Conference in the first week and a half of the season. They're 3-0 when Kyle Lowry plays. They have the #1 defense in the NBA. And we're going to stay on that side tonight. Okay, that's what we're going to focus on because we talked a lot about the offense, and obviously there's some kinks that they're going to need to work out. They're kind of middle of the pack right now. But their defense is so good that even with a middle-of-the-pack offense and even with Lowry missing a game, they still have the best net rating in the league with the 15th rated offense in the league. And we'll start here with Toine because he's kind of on the hot seat tonight. He's our 4th. Is this, in your view, sustainable? Is this, if guys stay healthy, is this a top 5 defense?
I think they can be. I think when all of these guys were brought in, like PJ and Kyle Lowry, etc., like we all thought, okay, the defense is going to be good. But #1 defense in the league, it looks ridiculous now. And like seeing it in action in comparison to seeing it on paper. So I hope it's sustainable. I would think it is just because the personnel is not going to change, but the guys are older, so you can see how late in the season guys might wear down and want to save themselves for the playoffs. But if everything, all chips, all laid out and everybody's healthy, everybody's good, I think the defense can be sustainable. Top 1 is tough, but top 5 definitely.
Greg, who's the most important player on the defense? Who's the guy if they pull out, it doesn't look the same?
It's got to be Bam, right? He covers up so much now. I mean, it's hard though, like because Jimmy's doing things defensively like that free safety stuff is nasty that he is crafting this year particularly. And it's interesting that they're such a good defensive team, but I think they are, last I checked, bear with me here, 30th in the league in block shots. So they're like doing it in a different way. It's a lot about anticipation and those reads. And I feel like just there's a portion of that we just have to recognize. Bam Adebayo spearheads a lot of the versatility and the switching and just all the stuff you can do. So that's where I'm going.
Alex, I saw a stat today that players being defended by Bam are shooting 10 of 41 from the field. and some of that is close to the rim. I mean, it's under 25%. Has he? Tell me how the new personnel on defense and also the way that Spoelstra is using it changes his role on defense. We've talked a lot about how Lowry and less dribble handoffs and everything else changes his role on offense. How has his role changed on defense?
Well, I think we've talked about it before as far as, they don't have to switch all the time now, even though we saw a whole lot of it last night. I think last night was a matchup where it made a lot of sense for them to switch because of, the offensive superstar talent they've got there and the type of defenders they got in their starting lineup. It just made a whole lot of sense to not put too much pressure on one guy to stay home on superstars when they get off screens. It's like, okay, no, just switch it over to PJ, just switch it over to Bam, whoever, is on that side of the court. They did a whole lot of it last night. But against other matchups, they're free to drop and keep Bam closer to the rim. And we've talked about that in previous shows, and it just makes a whole lot of a difference. Like, you look at Bam's per game rebounds. I think before the Brooklyn game, he was at 14 rebounds a game. I don't know what it is right now.
Basically that.
It's going to sustain. I mean, maybe not at 14 rebounds a game. It could be, but I'm just saying it's going to be higher than it has been in the past. And I just think, like, the way that they're playing defense now where Bam a lot of times doesn't have to cover up for everybody else, it just makes things a lot easier on him, and it makes him look even more special. Whereas him and Jimmy in the past couple of seasons were always having to cover up for everybody else, and it's just like it's a little bit too much on them. And so Lowry and PJ, I think, have just taken a whole burden off of the Heat on the defensive end, and they just, like I said on last night's show, poetry in motion on defense. It looks like they've been playing together for years. Yeah. So they can pretty much throw out whatever type of scheme they want, and they're going to execute it. And I just feel great about how damn dominant the defense is, because they're up in defensive rating, and they're number one by almost 6 points, which is about the difference between
that may not be sustainable. No, that kind of edge.
But for it to be that dominant away is unbelievable. Sign. It's the difference between second and eighth.
The other part of it, by the way, Ben, I sorry, I'm holding it so everybody can hear me, but I can tell you that there's a chance of rain tonight. Outside. So I don't know. Alex, you missed the comment because you were talking, but Ben asked why I was holding my microphone up like I was doing a weather report. Which is a typical Ben comment.
Traditional broadcast journalism student right there.
Well, yeah, I never did any of this in school. I was a writer. But here's the thing about it though, Toine, because I know that, and Alex has talked about this, is kind of the theory of Heat defense. If you have two, negative defenders on the floor, you can cover for them. If you got three, you're the Heat from last year, right? Like where you can't. They're not going to be in that position with Lowry this year. But just assessing, like, Duncan Robinson is part of a unit that is doing this defensively, so he can't be that awful so far this season, right? Like, what have you? I mean, Duncan and Tyler would be sort of considered, I guess, the weak links in the rotation defensive. I think Strus actually is more physical than either of them and probably on a higher level. But what have you seen from those two guys? Like, just as complementary, because they're not going to be the lead guys of the defense, but the guys that don't get you killed, basically.
For what it's worth, and this may give me some flack, but Duncan has been better defensively than he has been offensively this season, and it makes no sense whatsoever. Like, agree, he's actually able to stay in front of guys. He's still getting like I'm the white guy, they're gonna go at me type stuff, but like he knows where to be. He's in the right position. He's able to contest shots, and then offensively he's doing absolutely nothing. So I think like Duncan is actually a plus defender right now. He's not at least net neutral. Let's say that. But as far as like Tyler, there was a play last night, very specifically, like I think it was the third or fourth quarter. James Harden tried to get past Tyler Hero, and he was not having it. Like, he stonewalled him, which makes no sense because Tyler Hero is like $124, like soaking wet. But the dude, he's improved defensively like Duncan did last year, if that makes sense. Tyler is stronger. He's able to stay in front of guys. He's still going to be picked on when it comes to like screens and everything like that. He still has trouble doing that. But in terms of like just being solid, just my man, I got to stick my man. I got to stay in front of him for 8 seconds. Like, he can do that for the most part. I'm not saying he's going to be a world beater defensively, but he's like fine enough. So you take that.
He's not getting cooked regularly. And I think another thing that's like really crazy, and I don't know how it correlates, but this rebounding turnaround, like when you think about the personnel they brought in, to think that it would be literally like a 13 rebound difference between what they averaged last year to this year, and that they're leading the league in rebounding. It's 4 games. I know y'all, but like that some of that is Duncan is rebounding better than he ever has. Tyler is rebounding really well too. So like, I guess I'll throw this out, Ethan. I didn't mean to like grab it, but like how is that rebounding tied to the defense?
Well, I mean, I think that a big part of this is they didn't finish possessions last year, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you don't finish a possession, you're giving the easy putbacks. I mean, even look early in the season last year at a game that they lost that they shouldn't have lost. I mean, I was like one of 8 people in the building because it's before everybody came back, and I'm watching Peyton Pritchard go right past Tyler Hero for a putback at the end of the game. I mean, that kind of stuff was happening consistently last season. It's not happening now, okay? And one of the things is
you forgot about that.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff from last year we just totally blanked over at this point, Alex. But the thing is, like, they are all boxing out. Like, Tyler is rebounding now, and so if that's going to happen, then they're going to be able to finish possessions. Like, I do think the rebounding is sustainable. I think it's interesting what you mentioned, Greg, about the shot blocking, because typically we think of great defensive teams as having a shot blocker in the center. I mean, for God's sake, NBA.com has Rudy Gobert above their MVP ladder right now, which like makes me want to invalidate NBA.com completely. But we do think of great defenses being anchored by a shot blocker. I mean, the Heat defenses of the late 90s were anchored by a shot blocker, right? I mean, even though, you know, if Shaq was a fat shit for very long portions of his career, he still could block a couple of shots a game, right? That's how we think of this. They don't really have a shot blocker. It's never really been a Bam instinct, even with the Tatum block. That's not where he probably. They're doing it in different ways. It's the rotation. It's being on a string. It's the ability to switch. It's what
the
Tucker
playmaker
talked
is
about.
Jimmy on defense.
And Jimmy, but it's also what Tucker talked about yesterday. They don't have guys with soft egos on this team. And so that makes defense easier because you can tell a guy switch. Okay. You can tell a guy,
like,
you didn't do your job in the
Let's
last
do it.
possession.
Yeah.
That was part of the frustration with, and it was funny to me that Lakers fans think Kendrick Nunn's going to solve their problem, because one of the frustrations that other players had with Kendrick last year was he wasn't in the right places on switches, and he got blown up on screens. Okay. And they don't have that. And Goran's too nice to tell him. Okay. So nobody really wants, but the reality is those two guys really hurt the defense last year. I'm going to go to Alex in a second, but while we're on the subject, I'm going to throw a 90s question at, and there's only one person on this panel I can do this to. So I'm going to throw this out to you, Greg. Do you think this defense has a chance to be better than the best Riley defenses in Miami? Because the big 3 defenses were great, but they were different. They were create turnovers, get out in the passing lanes, that kind of stuff. But again, weren't anchored by a true shot blocker. I don't consider Joel Anthony that, right? Bosch was not that. But I'm talking about the Heat defenses that remind people the most of this one. The morning PJ Brown, Clarence Weatherspoon, physical, big front lines. And even Timmy was better defensively here than he was in Golden State. And Marley, of course, okay, who pushed guys around. Can this defense be better than that one?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that because the game has changed so much that Alonzo did things to cover things up that players just can't do these days. Like, you making fun of Rudy Gobert shows exactly why this Heat defense can be better than those 96, 97 type defenses. And also Kyle, like, Timmy was okay on defense, but Kyle is at another level at least so far from what we've seen. So and that's super fun and encouraging to think about, that they could actually be that good of a defense. But I think that's totally, I don't know, at the height of the big 3's powers, when they turned on that defensive switch, it's something that blitzed a team in a way that I don't think anyone can recreate. But other than that, this could be.
I think, Greg, that was more so because of what happened on the other end. It was because when they got those turnovers, they were being flushed. Okay,
it's true. It's demoralizing.
This team's not going to do that as much. Alex, let me ask you another sort of hypothetical or comparison question. Milwaukee just won the championship. They did it in large part on the strength of having 3 or 4 elite defenders in their starting lineup. Very much like this one, right? PJ Tucker being the 4th. Right. And their 5th guy wasn't bad either. Okay. Whether it was DiVincenzo, particularly before he got hurt. But with having Giannis, having Middleton, having Holiday, can this Heat defense be better than that Milwaukee defense in the playoffs?
That's the one that comes to mind for me. And I know when we talked to Nikias a couple of weeks ago, he also brought up the Sixers, which is fair. Like, obviously, in a world where Simmons is a part of the team, he said, you got to account for Simmons, Tybalt, and Embiid. I get it. the Bucks to me is the one that's the real threat there for obvious reasons. To me, when they're healthy, and obviously the Heat did not play them healthy, Jrue Holiday is just a complete menace on defense, and that was what they were kind of missing against the Heat, that perimeter defender, and the Heat were lighting him up. So I think that game, it was really obvious how missed Jrue was among, the 4 other guys that were missing or whatever that are a part of the rotation. And look, they're second in rebound rate right now. They were in the bottom 10 last year, I want to say. The season before, the year that they got to the finals in the regular season, they were in the top 5 in rebound rate. So I think a lot of that has to do with going back to more of a drop. But what it is telling you is, like we talked about in other shows, they're not going to get bullied anymore. And so the fact that, like you mentioned, that they're 15th in offensive rating right now and still number 1 in the league in net rating, it's pretty damn impressive, man. Like, they're not even hitting their shots right now. They're bottom 5 in the league in 3-pointers attempt and in 3-point percentage. And they're still number 1 in net rating despite that. So that's how you know this team is really like, but they're killing it on defense and the rebounds, and also just consistently scoring inside and out, not using the 3-point line as much.
Well, okay, but about that, and Toine, I'll go to you on this, because I think one of the big concerns, and I remember talking to Nate Duncan about this, and actually I asked him the question you wanted me to ask, Alex, when I was on the podcast, about the fact that the Heat defense has typically given up a lot of corner threes, which is why, it's just the way that it was structured, and which is why we've seen some of these guys, the Malik Monks of the world, go off on them. The, of course, shots where guys are making shots. We really haven't seen that either, though, this year. Like, I don't feel like defensively there's a lot to work. Like, if you look at all the levels, are they going to get scored on big time inside? Well, they don't really let anybody get inside. That's the thing. So they're not going to be bullied in there. But even the 3-point shot, like, they've guarded it, like which last year at times, past couple of years, they haven't.
I think a lot of it has to do with just having better perimeter guys. Like, it's just talent. It's not necessarily scheme, not necessarily doing something that's so much different than what they were doing in years past. You just got better guys, more higher IQ guys, getting out on the perimeter, switching, being able to call out stuff. I think a lot of times what we don't notice about veterans and we don't realize about veterans is because they've done this so long, they already know all the defensive schemes that you could possibly throw out. Yeah. They know exactly where they got to be on the court. I think this was something that really stood out to me when we got Dwayne Dedmon last year, how he didn't have no run with the team throughout the entire season. Then he comes in and immediately knows his role. He's able to fill it and he's able to do it well.
Just knows how to play.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think that's what you get with all these veteran guys on this team. Everybody wants to say how old we are and everything like that. But when it comes to like defensive prowess and knowing where to be and being in spots all the time, that's what you get those guys for.
But here's the thing, Toine. Here's the difference. And it's funny because you mentioned this, because this has been the big debate on the Dolphins side all year. And our guy Louis Sung has hit on it, which is that they didn't bring in any veterans this offseason. And we've seen how, particularly on the offensive line, guys who know how to play, and that the whole thing's falling apart. But what's interesting is, and this is a credit to Riley, who sometimes gets a lot of quote unquote heat for liking the old guys, right? Like, that's always been one of the knocks against him. But you look at the types of players, the old guys the Lakers brought in, guys who don't defend, who are not role players, Dwight maybe was
just
back
names.
In his day. Carmelo Anthony and those type of guys who they're not giving you anything on that end. There's no dirty. Well, I said last night, Alex, that the Nets are a glamour team. I mean, the Lakers are too. They're just like an old glamour team. And they're all wearing wigs. Like, it's just I don't. I mean, that to me, that's the big difference, is that Riley brought in older guys who know how to play, who will do the dirty work and not care. PJ Tucker, Dwayne Dedmon, Markieff Morris, who was a scorer early in I saw him drop 37 against the LeBron Cleveland team once. He's not that player anymore. But this team, and any of you guys can jump in, that's why I think the Laker thing backfires. It's just throwing stars out doesn't work. Alex, go ahead.
I read today, I think, that they've given up 115 points in 4 out of 5 of their games, the Lakers have. Meanwhile, so I mean, I knew they were going to be bad on defense, but Jesus Christ, man. And meanwhile, the Heat
But Alex, they were good on defense 2 years ago. But
they lost all those guys. They let them walk.
KCP, Markieff. Look at the guys who were playing against Caruso. Look at the players who were playing against the Heat in the finals, and none of those guys are there anymore.
Well, if your rim protection is anchored by DeAndre Jordan in the year 2021, then something is clearly wrong.
Yeah.
Even Dwight, literally up and down the roster, it's just food, man. Like, you look at
I don't understand. Why would Bron do that? Like, and we won't turn this into a Lakers discussion for too long, but it is bizarre that you wouldn't think he would be able to recognize like the dogs that you go and get a ring. Like of all people,
you know why it is. You know why it is, and knowing him a little bit, I think that yes, the conventional wisdom is with LeBron that you get shooters, okay, and that on offense, and then defensively you get guys who can cover up on the perimeter so that he doesn't have to guard the best guy. Like that is typically the direction LeBron has gone. But I feel like what's happened is he owes favors to so many people around the league. I really think that's what's happened. I think between him and Clutch, it's like, okay, DeAndre Jordan is a guy he's gotten to know. Okay, we're going to bring him in. Melo, you knew that was going to happen before the end of his career.
He just wants to get him a ring.
Sympathetic to Melo for never winning a title. Like, so some of these guys, Trevor Ariza, I mean, they're seriously, Laker fans are counting on Ariza and Nunn to save their defense. We saw that. We saw that last year. I honestly don't think the basketball part means as much to LeBron anymore. I think it's more the friendship part, the developing business relationships for after his career, and just hanging out on the bus with Carmelo. Like I just think that ultimately, look, he would have brought in Dwayne.
The aggregators are going to get this, Ethan.
Done going for titles, according to Ethan.
Well, you know, some of the people used to work for him who I used to deal with don't anymore, so I guess it's okay.
No, he signaled that when they traded for us that they were done going for titles, so it's good.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so all right, so let's pivot back now to the Heat a little bit, and particularly because I know you mentioned, Toine, that maybe that scheme doesn't matter as much, and I agree with that. But I do think we have to look at Spoelstra here because when things don't go well, he gets criticized. So I mean, he's not. I mean, you mentioned it, Alex. There's more drop this year. He's not doing. I mean, it took him in the while in the big three to kind of figure out what their defense was going to be, and then it was Bosch blitzing pick and rolls. I just feel like he's gotten a handle. Like it felt like they knew they were going to get Lowry and Tucker for so long, right? That it's just like he's had this defense plan, but just go through it schematically a little bit here. Like what are they doing differently?
Well, the thing is that they can kind of switch whatever they want to now, and I think Brady talked about this on last night's show on as far as offense. When the other team is on offense, I mean, just kind of picking out which one of the shooters you want to leave open. And I just think like their defense is very smart in that way, where guys are flying around, but it's very functional and strategic. Where like DeAndre Bembry might not get a hard closeout at all because he's not a shooter. Javon Carter was not getting hard closeouts last night, and that's an obvious thing, right? In the NBA, you're gonna close out on shooters a lot harder than you are on guys who are not those guys. I just think the Heat defense has already reached those peak levels that I think you would assume that they get into in midseason or, closer to the end of the season, like the Heat always get hot in March or whatever. It's kind of happening right away. And I think that's what's kind of, surprised me is how effective, how fast, right? Like all of it coming together so quickly. But as far as schematically, man, like it's just really hard to score on this team. Like, like Toine was going before about how Duncan is still the guy that gets picked on. And that's another thing we talked about. Like they try to go at him one-on-one with his 6'9" height and 7-foot wingspan, and then you've got 4 elite defenders helping out. It's just really hard to score on this team, specifically with that lineup that we're going to see more often than others. I just think it's, like you try to get a switch, you're going to see PJ, or you're going to see Kyle Lowry, or you're going to, you try to make a pass if you get trapped and Jimmy's deflecting it. It's just like there's a whole lot going on all over the place. For as much as they move on defense, they're always in the right spots. Like they're not messing up. So it's pretty insane to me to see. So it's not really anything that they're changing anything schematically. It's more like they got rid of some of the gimmicky stuff. They're not helping off the corners as much. It's just switching and dropping, and they're executing both 10 out of 10.
Have they played any zone at all?
No.
Any even one possession?
No.
I mean that it's nice. I know that was the gimmicky thing you're alluding to. Charlotte is the best. They're leading scoring. I just looked at this. They're averaging 121 points a game. This is going to be an interesting test for the Miami's defense tomorrow night.
Well, Greg, I said it. I said they had to get the one last night because the next 2 games on the schedule are tougher matchups for Miami. Charlotte and Memphis, the way that they play as frenetically as they both play, both led by young, aggressive, fast, but LaMelo's not as fast maybe as Ja, but like just point guards who control the action. This is a little bit of we will see the point of attack defense and kind of where it's at in these games. Last 5 minutes, couple things. One, if you want us to read your questions, super chat's the way to do it. I will not read Royal's question no matter how much money he gives us, although all of it will go to the other 3 guys on the panel. I can promise you that. Also, so we'll take those questions. But the one thing, this came in and I did read a couple of those. And let's get to it. There are two other players on the horizon who could make this defense even scarier. So let's get into the one who's here and the one that we're kind of looking at in Houston. Not the quarterback, the other quarterback, the other quarterback who's not playing in Houston, John Wall. But let's start with Oladipo here. Let's assume 80%. Let's just assume 80, and let's assume he gets in heat shape because he is not. Okay, Alex and I stood next to him. He's not in heat shape. It's going to take a month. I'm sorry about the pictures I took, but it is what it is, man. The camera don't lie, even if it's my camera. But let's say he gets into 80% shape, okay? 80% of what he was. And you can throw him out there instead of Duncan or Hero in some of those situations at the end of the game. What does the defense look like then, Toine?
Oh, it's scary hours for the league. You can switch everything known to man. You can play whatever defense that you want to. If you want to blitz, you can go ahead and blitz. You want to drop, go and drop. If you want to play at the level, you can play you literally can do everything, and then everybody's going to be in jail because you got a legitimate perimeter defender, a guy who can defend the perimeter, or even like stop guys in the paint, box out, everything like that. Like all five of them can do that. So it's scary hours for the league. Obviously, I don't think that lineup will start any games. No. I think they'll do a lot of closing though, and it's gonna be bad.
Let's look at John Wall, Greg. I mean, he's done the right things there. Everybody talks really positively about him. I've always been a John Wall fan, so I just have always liked him since he came in the league. I like the way he's carried himself on some bad teams. I know there's been some situations, but I'm generally a fan of John Wall. And you know what? He didn't play bad last year. They lost a lot of games, but he actually worked his way into shape. And he wasn't, if you look at the metrics, he wasn't bad defensively either on a team that was horrific defensively. So, I mean, what do you, it would seem to me this would be attractive for him.
I love the idea. This is where I'm at with it. And I don't know when a buyout would happen and how they're going to even negotiate something like that with so much money owed to John Wall. But when I checked in on this, that luxury tax situation, like they essentially can't add another player until they get to the part of the season where the prorated veteran minimum is low enough to where they don't go into the tax. Now, is John Wall good enough to go into the tax? That's a conversation we could have. I, from the vibes that I'm getting from who I'm talking to, I don't know that that's the case unless they started to struggle. But when you're 3-1, it's a lot easier than when you're 1-3.
Okay, but Greg, now here's the thing. You know that I have a certain understanding of the whole luxury tax situation. I know why you don't want to go into the repeater. I get it. It's been explained to me by people inside. I understand it. If John Wall is anything close to what he was even last season, and he wants to join you for a shot at a championship, okay, to play 15 minutes off the bench and replace maybe the Gabe Vincent minutes or take the ball out of Hero's hands a little bit so he can play off the ball, I'm sorry, I'm going to raise holy hell on Twitter if they don't do it, okay? Because that's exactly the type of situation that Riley was talking about at his presser, right, Alex?
It's true.
You have to add him, right? Just luxury tax be damned.
I think it's interesting that you say that now, and we really just went through something kind of similar, obviously not anything buyout related, but the whole Kendrick Nunn thing. And I know I brought this up before, but it's kind of a similar thing in the sense that it kind of showed, and I know it wasn't just about him, but they weren't willing to go into the luxury tax for Kendrick Nunn. And who has shown you more recently, Kendrick Nunn or John Wall? I know it's different.
For what they need, Alex, it's John Wall. I mean, I was a Kendrick Nunn fan of his offense, but I mean, I understand
I'm not the biggest Nunn guy at the beginning
of the season, but
to me, it's like the John Wall thing is interesting because I mean, you get him off a buyout, that means you're getting him on a minimum. That's a home run because then there's no risk. It's a similar deal with Oladipo, and all of a sudden you have two guys like that off your bench who, listen, both of them hit. What happens if they're both pretty good? But let
me sneak one thing in there. Just because I want to make sure that I'm clear on this, just so that you guys don't think I'm crazy. I'm all about the John Wall idea. And if they wait till the buyout deadline, like before for guys to be playoff eligible, then that's going to be the time frame where Miami will have the ability to sign him to the veteran minimum. So if you're talking about adding him like in late February, March, okay. But right now, I don't know.
Greg, just to be clear, though, do they have any other vehicle they could use other than a minimum once Wall is bought out? So if there's any competition, there's nothing left, right?
They have the other
biannual?
They do. They have their they didn't use their biannual exception, so they could do that. if there was a bidding war for John Wall, but I mean, like, as Toine said earlier, it's 2021. Is there going to be bidding wars for John Wall?
I have a couple of things on this. So shout out Brian Goins from Heat Beat. I think a couple of weeks ago,
Correct.
He crunched the numbers about like if they sign a guy at a certain time. I don't remember the date right now.
It's late February.
Yes,
yeah, no, they know.
Can just avoid the tax if they sign it like certain amount of days when it comes to the minimum, I think, though. So I don't think that would apply with biannual. The other thing here is the Rockets have maybe the cheapest owner in the league with Tillman Fertitta. So I just don't think that buyout is coming. Like, I kind of have my expectations all the way down when it comes to that. Like you said, like, they owe him a lot of money. It just, yeah. Now I can't. You see, I just got thrown off course completely. That's the second or third time I've heard David Blaine comparisons.
Roll that back. Roll back the last comment. Even though they didn't give us money, there you go. There definitely would be a bidding war. The Sixers and the Nets also need a guard.
I don't think so.
Okay, if you're the Nets, let's say Kyrie never gets the shot. You're not going to take it, and you think you don't think Kevin Durant will go in and say, "Let's get this guy. He gives us a better chance to win."
Isn't Kyrie going to get traded for Ben Simmons? Don't we all see that coming eventually?
Oh, we all see that. I'm the one who suggested that.
You're right. You're right. And you know what? Like, every day that passes, I'm like, they're going to just both swallow their pride and do the swap.
Kyrie is going to play for the Brooklyn Nets this season. That's why I'm still kind of fearing them, because I think when the three of them are there, it's going to be really, really, really tough to guard. I mean, even, I don't know about Harden ever since these new rules looks different. But look, man, I think either he's going to change his mind and get the vax, or the regulations are going to soften up in New York. I don't see that trade happening.
I think it's the regulations softening up. But here's the thing. All right, so let's go around then. We'll close with this, with a totally off the wall topic. What is going to be, because I agree with you, he's coming back and he's going to come up with some way to come back. What is going to be the excuse, Toine? What is he going to say to come back?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. You might have to come back to me on that.
He had to do it for his livelihood,
It's gonna be like, he's gonna say something like it was never about being against the shot. It was always about, being for the employees who were mandated. So that's going to be the excuse. The voiceless. That's what it was.
Yeah.
That's going to be the excuse.
The voiceless, the QAnon supporters.
I know Ethan is loving this.
Right.
All right, there. Greg, what is he gonna say? That's what he's gonna say, right?
Toine got it. Like, that's the politically correct thing. Even though you wouldn't think he'd want to say the politically correct answer, Kyrie is gonna probably do that. Maybe he'll say something related to KD and them guys, like rallying around him and saying, like, we're in this for something. But I don't know, man. Like, that situation extending this far, to me, like, as a follower of teams that win championships, that kind of stuff doesn't usually spell good things for them putting that together and winning. So I just think with Philly and Brooklyn in this fractured state, it makes the East super interesting.
But it's not just the East. And okay, let's close here. And I know we're going a couple minutes late here, but it's not just the East. And I don't want to get ahead of ourselves because the Heat are in this really difficult run and they could drop these games to Charlotte and Memphis, honestly, and we'll be talking totally differently. Okay. But I'm looking around the NBA right now, and I don't see a whole lot of teams with fewer holes than Miami. Like, I really don't. Like, I mean, again, the Lakers. I mean, the Clips are not getting Kawhi back anytime soon. Denver doesn't have Murray back, Toine. You look at Utah. I don't trust them in the playoffs. Phoenix, it doesn't feel quite the same as it did last year. And I think Chris Paul will get hurt at some stage this year. I don't know that Cameron Payne's going to be enough to get them through. And they're dealing with their center, who's not very happy because he didn't get paid. So you look at all those teams in the West, and then you mentioned, Milwaukee's solid, we know, but I think the PJ Tucker loss, to me, that was the brilliance of that move, because I think it hurts them as much as it helps Miami. Brooklyn's dealing with stuff. Philly can't deal Simmons. I don't think Atlanta's ready yet. Like, I guess if you're in the Heat locker room and you're looking at this, and I know Tim Legler said this today, like, why not them?
I think, honestly, the only team that I'm like, so at least in the East is Milwaukee, because Milwaukee's so good. They have Giannis, and Giannis is the answer to pretty much every question ever. They still got Drew Holiday and Brook Lopez, and I think the loss of PJ hurts them a little bit. But in terms of what they do, it gets rid of a guy who can guard like a big solid wing, because you really don't want Giannis there because you're gonna be running him through screens, and that's less than ideal. But I think Milwaukee's really the only one. I guess Atlanta is fun. If Charlotte is going to be this Charlotte the whole year, I don't want to see them anywhere near the playoffs. But other than that, I think Suns are fine, and that's really it.
Do you buy the Bulls? Do you buy the Bulls? Any of you?
The Bulls have a top 5 defense right now. That's not going to last.
Wait,
There's
what?
They
no
haven't
way
played
they're playing
anybody
it.
either. That's the other thing.
Exactly. They played Detroit twice. There's
Hold
no
on,
way in the world that's going to.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
A
I
team
almost
with
think
boots
Charlotte is more sustainable than Chicago. There's something
Yes.
about that Charlotte team, even from last year. They got like a Magic 0304 Heat vibe to them.
You know what they have? I said it last year. They have a Heat 0304 vibe. Or
That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
I said Magic. Oh my gosh.
And
What
it's
the
like
hell were they
when-
doing in
I thought you were saying
0304?
magical.
Well, if LaMelo takes a little bit of that Dwayne jump, then yes. I mean, he seems to be making everybody else better. I don't like them on the interior, though. But again, that was the problem with the 0304 Heat, and they went out and got Shaq, which
You're not a Plumlee guy?
I'm not a Plumlee guy. I don't know which Plumlee that
The
is.
Bulls are second in defensive rating.
They
Yes.
played Kelly Olynyk twice.
It's not
I mean, I don't-
sustainable.
Third. The Timberwolves are fifth. What's up? I can't.
It's
I
too
can't
early.
think that
The
We're gonna
Wolves-
look like
Wolves-
idiots.
The league.
the Wolves are that team that's going to be 11-10 and win and lose 21 straight. You know that. Like there's always Cleveland's that team too. There's always those teams. Minnesota.
I don't know. I think Cleveland might just be that good defensively with Allen and Mobley there.
I
Whoa.
don't think there's a whole lot of soft play. People are talking about the Warriors. Let's just close with this. I know everybody's excited about them. I don't know what condition Clay's going to come back in or how healthy he's going to remain. They were a dark horse to me to be like a top 3 seed, but I don't see them coming out of the West. All right, we're closing here. Thanks to our sponsors. First, everythingtradeshows.com. We appreciate everybody joining us. Also, I wanted to mention before we go, underdogfantasy.com. If you guys want to, that's trade shows. That's really cool pictures though. Underdogfantasy.com. Use the code 5RSN. 5RSN. You can get in some of these NFL and NBA drafts with us on a nightly basis, which are a lot of fun. So we're going to be posting those on our Twitter handle. Again, there it is, underdogfantasy.com. Use the code 5RSN. You know what? When you do it, you get $10. They just hand you $10. And most of these games are $3, $5, so you can play a couple of games before you've even spent any of your own money. So go to Underdog Fantasy, use the code 5RSN when you sign up. Final thing, we got to do this in 20 seconds or less. Memphis and Charlotte, or Charlotte and Memphis. Twan, how many do they get?
None.
Really?
Oh,
3-3. We'll be talking about that after. Alex.
they're gonna lose one, and I wanted to shout out the commentary. By the way, the Heat always do this. They're gonna lose one of these games that we expect them to win. Like you said, that between Ja and LaMelo, both of these offenses gonna be, guys getting to the paint. They're speedy. One of them is gonna be annoying and have a great shooting night. So they're gonna lose one. But I want to shout out this commenter, Alex M. Said Kyrie's creating his own Himalayan salt lamps, and also that he leads a drum circle every blood moon.
Hey, that's what's up. That is what's happening, and that's why you got to have a little bit more guts. They're getting both of these games, y'all. Come on, man. Damn.
I think they get one. I actually think they beat Charlotte and lose to Memphis. I'm sorry, I've been in that.
That's how I would lean if I had to give you my real pick.
I've been in
At
that building
Memphis.
too many times and seen them drop games. That is why, and I'm going to mention it here, our first 2 watch parties are in 2 other places they always lose. So we don't get blamed for it. November 2nd against Dallas will be at Dangerous Minds Brewery and Pizza Place up in really good spot up in Pompano. Plenty of big part. I know people want us to go south. Find us a sponsor south. We're going to be in Pompano, and then we're going to be at Quarter Deck on November 8th, and we're going to be at the one over in Sunrise near the Panthers Arena for that one, and one after that will be by my place in Fort Lauderdale.
Fill up the tank before heading over there.
That's fine. Look, I said, just find a sponsor for us down there, and I'll go to Kendall. I don't care, but we're going to Pompano and Sunrise. We're going to Pompano and Sunrise first. So join us at the watch party. That hat that Greg has on, I got 10 of those here. I'm going to be giving some of those away. Okay, so we're going to be doing that at the watch party. Thanks to Twan. I'll get you one. I'll get you one. We got thanks to Twan with all of his Twitter accounts. You can follow him as you see there, _ TJ Ellis. Get him on Clutch Corner. Alex with the Twitter account. I have no idea why it's still that. And also Greg Sylvander. Alex and I will be at the game tomorrow night against Charlotte. So we'll be there providing live coverage. Have a good night.